Assalamu
Assalamualaikum.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the deep dive. Make sure you subscribe and, drop a comment if you enjoy this kind of thing, because tonight, well, we are actually taking you on a literal journey.
Well, that that's right. Yeah, we are. We're hitting the road tonight.
Literally. So, okay, let's unpack this. I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine you're walking out of a massive, just roaring, brilliantly lit sports stadium.
Oh yeah, like full sensory overload.
Exactly. You've got the blinding floodlights, the shouting, the sheer kinetic energy of like 50,000 people pressing in on all sides of you. And then you open this heavy metal door, you step through it, and the door just slams shut behind you.
And just boom, complete silence.
Right. Suddenly you are in a completely soundproof, pitch black room. The lights just cut out. All you hear is the sound of your own breathing. And, well, all you see is the faint, soft glow of a car dashboard.
That abrupt transition is, it's jarring on a neurological level. Human beings are incredibly adaptable. But when you pull the plug on all that sensory input so violently, your visual cortex and your auditory system, they genuinely struggle to recalibrate.
Yeah. It takes a minute.
It really does. Your brain almost doesn't know what to do with the sudden vacuum of stimuli. It enters this state of hypervigilance, before it finally settles into the quiet.
And today we are taking you right through that door. We are going on a highly specific, immersive, and honestly, really historical deep dive into the Najd Desert in Saudi Arabia.
Based on the stack of sources we've been going through, yeah.
Right. Ranging from these old historical geographic surveys to deep cultural analyses of Arabian trade route. We are tracing a nighttime route, specifically at night, from the glowing modern metropolis of Riyadh all the way north to the agricultural heartland of Buraydah in the Al-Qassim region.
And I think the stakes of this deep dive, well, they're entirely bound to the setting of the sun. The desert is an environment with a profound, almost literal split personality.
Hola.
If you only ever experience this landscape during the day, you are missing half of its reality. Traversing this specific terrain in the dark completely rewrites its character.
It really does.
It reveals these hidden histories, ancient survival tactics, and cultural rhythms that the blinding daytime sun just, completely washes out.
Which is why we're strictly exploring its nocturnal life today. Because think about it, you leave a modern city of millions, you plunge into an ancient desert, and for centuries out there, the only maps were the stars.
Just the stars.
And the only lighthouses were these scattered hidden water wells. We are trading the daytime hustle for the absolute stillness of the night. It's basically functions as a time machine.
It's a journey from the peak of human engineering and light pollution back into an environment that just demands immense respect. The darkness out there, it isn't just an absence of light, right? It is a physical presence.
Yeah, you feel it.
You do. It dictates how you move, what you see, and really how you think.
So let's get into the car. We are pulling out of Riyadh, and the visual of this departure is, it's really striking. If you are listening to this on a commute right now, think about how the city looks in your rearview mirror.
Oh man, Riyadh at night is something else.
It is. You see this massive skyline, right?
Yeah.
The iconic curve of the Kingdom Center glowing against the black sky, the dense grids of skyscrapers, these huge arteries of gridlock traffic radiating red taillight.
Yeah, that endless sea of red lights.
But as you drive north, it's all shrinking. It's fading away into the dust and the distance until it's just this faint orange haze on the horizon.
And we have to acknowledge, the physical infrastructure that makes this departure so seamless today. Because you are rolling onto a highly modern Saudi highway.
Smooth sailing.
Very smooth. You have ambient highway lighting near the city limits, perfectly painted high visibility lane dividers, and just the seamless quiet hum of your tires on modern asphalt.
But then, right as you leave the city, it changes.
Exactly. The moment you slip past the outer limits of that suburban sprawl, the ambient lighting just stops. It is just you, your headlights sweeping across the dark sand, and this untamed historic desert pressing right up to the edge of the pavement.
It brings me right back to that stadium analogy. You go from the total sensory overload of city lights and horns to just the hum of your engine in the darkness. That feeling of the world shrinking down to just the dashboard glow and the twin beams of your headlights. It's incredibly isolating.
It is.
But it's also, I don't know, strangely comforting. But it
Yeah.
makes me wonder about the psychology of the people who did this before the asphalt. Leaving the fortified safety of a city and stepping out into the pitch black desert sounds like a recipe for getting lost or, much worse, ambushed.
See, our modern biases really blind us here. To us, modern infrastructure has tamed a journey that used to take weeks into a smooth 4-hour drive.
Right, pop on a playlist and you're there.
Yeah, exactly. We view the dark as a hazard, something we have defeated with halogen headlights and GPS screens. But for centuries, the sheer vastness of the dark Najd desert, just beyond our modern headlights, wasn't a danger to be avoided at all.
Wait, are you saying they actively wanted to be out there in the dark? Because wouldn't a daytime caravan be infinitely safer simply because, well, you can see where you're going?
They had absolutely no choice. While the modern highway makes the dark feel safe for us today, centuries ago, the dark was the primary key to survival.
Because of the heat.
Exactly. The daytime heat of the Najd Desert could be lethal. We're talking about ambient temperatures that can easily exceed 110 or 115 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer.
Which is insane.
And ground temperatures are much higher. You simply could not move a heavy caravan of camels, goods, and people under the peak punishing midday sun. The caloric and hydration demands will wipe out a caravan in a matter of days.
Right.
So the desert for the traveler, it truly belongs to the night.
That makes total sense from a thermodynamic standpoint. You basically travel when the oven is turned off.
I was reading in our sources about the drastic drop in temperature that happens out there. The sand gives up its heat almost instantly once the sun dips below the horizon. Why is that, exactly? Why doesn't the desert stay warm like a city does?
It comes down to the specific heat capacity of sand. So quartz silica, which makes up a lot of desert sand, it just does not hold on to thermal energy very well.
Okay, so unlike concrete.
Exactly. Unlike concrete or asphalt, which absorb heat deep into their mass and then radiate it slowly all night, sand heats up superficially. The air above it gets scorching hot during the day, but as soon as the solar radiation starts, that surface heat dissipates into the atmosphere very rapidly.
Wow.
So you go from blistering, dangerous heat to a cool, sometimes even chilly night breeze in a matter of hours. And it's not just the humans waiting for that temperature drop, right? Because the wildlife completely shifts. We are sitting in a climate-controlled car today, but an ancient traveler would be walking alongside an ecosystem that only wakes up when the sand cools down.
Oh yeah, the desert comes alive in the dark. The animals have evolved specifically to exploit this exact thermal shift.
Like what kind of animals?
Well, you have the fennec fox, for one.
Oh, those huge ears.
Yeah, those massive ears actually serve as biological radiators to dissipate body heat, and they're out hunting in the cool air. You have desert owls navigating under the moonlight, and hedgehogs foraging. Furthermore, the acoustic environment changes entirely.
Wait, how so? Does the air actually carry sound differently at night?
Yes, it does, due to a phenomenon called temperature inversion.
Okay, what's that?
So during the day, the hot air near the ground refracts sound waves upward, away from the surface, which is why the desert can feel oppressively silent and, honestly, dead in the heat.
Interesting, so the sound just goes up and away.
Right. But at night, the ground cools faster than the air above it. This cooler, denser layer of air near the surface actually traps and refracts sound waves back down.
No way. That's crazy.
So an ancient traveler would hear the hoot of an owl, the shifting of sand, or the bells of another caravan from miles away.
That is fascinating. The physics of the air itself changes to help you hear what you can't see. But here's the part that I really need to unpack.
Let's do it.
If you are traveling at night to avoid the heat, and you are surrounded by rolling, featureless sand dunes that look entirely identical in the dark, how did you actually navigate?
That's the big question.
Yeah. If there are absolutely no roads, how on earth did a caravan find a small, hidden water well in the middle of 1,000,000 square miles of sand?
It speaks to the profound relationship between the Bedouin traveler and the night sky. For a modern driver, the stars are just a beautiful canopy, right? We might look up through the sunroof and point out a constellation if the light pollution is low enough.
Like, oh look, there's the Big Dipper.
Exactly. But for the ancient travelers on these exact routes, the stars were an intricate, moving map. They were a clock, a calendar, and a compass, all simultaneously.
Now, I understand using the North Star to generally know which way is north, but just knowing north doesn't help you find a specific 3-foot wide hole in the ground for water. How did they calculate distance?
Knowing north was just the baseline. They used a system of celestial navigation that relied on the rotation of the sky. Polaris, the North Star, stays relatively fixed, while the rest of the constellations appear to rotate around it throughout the night.
Right, right.
The Bedouin developed a highly sophisticated method of measuring these angles. They didn't have astrolabes or sextants out there. They used their own bodies.
Their bodies, like using their hands to measure the sky.
Exactly that. They used finger widths, a measurement known as the isba.
The Isba, okay.
Yeah, and they'd hold their hands at arm's length to measure the altitude of certain stars above the horizon. By knowing the altitude of specific stars at different times of the year, they could determine their latitude.
That is so precise.
But to address your point about distance,
Yeah.
they use the rotation of the stars as a clock.
Ah, okay.
If you know your camels walk at a steady pace of, say, 3 miles an hour, and you observe a specific constellation rotate 45 degrees across the sky.
Which takes a set amount of time.
Right, roughly 3 hours. So then you know you have covered exactly 9 miles.
It's dead reckoning, but calibrated by the cosmos. That is so cool. It's like navigating a featureless ocean, but the ocean is just made of sand.
And just like sailors navigating an ocean need lighthouses, the desert travelers needed waypoints. But their waypoints were invisible in the dark.
The wells.
We're talking about the ancient water wells, yes. These wells were the absolute lifelines of the trade routes. A caravan captain didn't just walk in a straight line. He mentally mapped a zigzagging route from one survival point to the next.
The entire logic of their movement, their speed, and their direction was dictated by where the water was hitting. So we're driving up this modern paved highway, blasting the air conditioning, maybe listening to some music, and we are quite literally driving over the invisible trails of these ancient caravans. The landscape outside our windows is silent, the sand is cooling off, and that massive, unpolluted, starry sky hanging over our windshield is the exact same map that guided traders for generations.
The highway connects the same dots the camels used to. We've merely paved over the survival logic of the past. Those ancient travelers weren't just moving through empty space, they were navigating between crucial settlements and oases, which served as the anchor points of this entire region.
Which brings us perfectly to the architecture of those settlements, because it's not just empty desert the whole 4 hours.
No, definitely not.
As we push further north, maybe an hour or so outside of Riyadh, we start passing through the Sudair region. You pass the exits for historic towns like Malham, Hatat Sudair, and Jalajil. And seeing these places at night provides a very specific visual aesthetic.
What stands out to you when you look at these towns in the dark?
Well, during the day, your eyes are naturally drawn to the modern development, right? The bright gas station signs, the concrete buildings, the traffic. But at night, especially if there's moonlight, the modern stuff kind of just fades into the shadows.
It blends in.
Yeah. What really catches your eye are the remnants of traditional Najdi architecture. You see these old, thick mud brick walls, the ruins of old markets that are now completely quiet. Seeing these mud brick ruins by moonlight is like looking at the skeletal structure of the landscape.
That's a great way to put it.
Without the blinding daytime sun watching everything out, the shadows really bring out the deep textures of the old walls.
And there is a deep functional genius to why that architecture looks the way it does and why it feels so distinct at night. Those mud brick walls aren't just aesthetic choices, and they weren't just used because mud was the only material lying around.
It was intentional.
Highly engineered for this specific climate. It relied entirely on a concept called thermal mass.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that term used in modern eco-architecture. Break down how thermal mass works in a traditional Najdi mud brick house.
So think of the walls of those mud brick houses as thermal batteries. The mud is mixed with straw and sometimes gravel to give it structural integrity, creating very thick, dense walls.
Right.
During the grueling daytime hours, these dense walls absorb the intense solar radiation. They possess a high volumetric heat capacity, meaning it takes a massive amount of energy to raise their temperature.
So they basically act like a shield, stopping the heat from instantly baking the inside of the house.
Exactly, a shield that stores the energy. The heat slowly migrates through the thick wall over a period of, say, 10 to 12 hours. By the time the peak heat of the day has fully penetrated the wall, the sun has already gone down.
Oh, wow. And remember what we said about the desert at night?
The ambient temperature plummets. It gets cold.
Right. So now the thermal battery discharges.
You got it. As the night air cools the exterior of the house, those walls slowly radiate all that stored daytime heat back out, both into the cold night air and into the interior of the home,
They act like natural, slow-release radiators.
keeping the living spaces warm during the freezing desert nights. When you look at these mud brick structures bathed in moonlight, you are looking at an incredibly elegant, ancient climate control system that works perfectly in tandem with the desert's extreme temperature swings.
You aren't fighting the environment at all. You're just harnessing its momentum. But mud brick isn't just used for homes, right? Our sources highlight a specific structure we pass in the Sudair region, the Al Murghab Watchtower.
Ah, yes, the watchtower.
You look out the passenger window and you see this cylindrical tower silhouetted against the night sky, sitting up on a hill. It looks like a lone sentry just watching the road.
The Al Murghab Watchtower is a quintessential example of tactical desert architecture. In a landscape that is mostly flat, elevation is everything.
Because you can't see very far.
Right. The curvature of the earth and the heat haze severely limit how far you can see from ground level. This watchtower was built on high ground to provide a strategic vantage point for the surrounding towns.
I assume during the day they are looking for approaching armies or trade caravans. But at night, how much can a guard actually see from a tower when it's pitch black?
Significantly more than you might think, especially because of the atmospheric conditions we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
In the quiet, cool air of the night, visibility can actually be surprisingly clear.
Really? Even without light?
Well, if a rival tribe or a massive trade caravan was approaching, the watchman was looking for two specific things: light and movement. The faint glow of campfires or torches could be spotted from miles away.
Oh, of course.
Furthermore, in the moonlight, the dust kicked up by hundreds of camels moving across the sand creates a distinct pale cloud that just hangs in the cool night air.
So the watchtower was essentially the early warning system of the Najd.
It was the radar station of its era. When you drive past it today, your headlights might briefly catch the textured mud brick at its base, but its dark silhouette against the stars reminds you of a time when the dark was something you had to vigilantly monitor.
Yeah.
The safety of the entire valley depended on the eyes of the person standing at the top of that tower in the middle of the night.
It's almost haunting, you know. You pass these sleeping towns, these ancient watchtowers, and you realize how much history is just resting out there in the shadows. But as we keep driving, as we hit the midpoint of our journey, the isolation of the dark gets broken by a very specific glowing phenomenon.
We're talking about the midway point near Al-Majma'ah and Zulfi, passing the Nafud al-Thuwayrad.
Yes, the red sand dunes. The sources describe these dunes as glowing with a faint, rusty color under the moonlight. It's a completely surreal optical effect. But right near these dunes, a very specific cultural ritual takes over the drive, the roadside stop.
The psychology of the roadside stop here is fundamentally different from what you might expect if you're used to, say, interstate driving in North America or Europe.
It is entirely different. If you're driving at night on a Western interstate, a rest stop is purely utilitarian, right? It's harsh fluorescent lights, a vending machine, some stale coffee, you pump your gas, and you leave.
You want to get out of there.
Yeah, you want to escape the liminal space of the gas station as fast as possible. But pulling over at a roadside cafe on the way to Buraydah, I mean, the vibe shifts completely.
You are dealing with the physical realities of night driving, monitoring your fatigue, fighting highway hypnosis where the white lines start to blur together, and dealing with the mental toll of staring into the dark void beyond your headlights. Your brain requires a break.
It does.
But in this region, the break itself is an event steeped in tradition.
You pull over, and instead of a sterile convenience store, you are stepping into a glowing oasis of traditional Arabic coffee, gawa, and dates. It feels less like a transaction and more like an extension of ancient hospitality. You smell the crushed cardamom, the saffron, the roasted beans. People aren't rushing back to their cars. They are sitting, resting, talking quietly.
To understand why this feels so different, we really have to look at the sociology and the biochemistry of that specific stop. Biochemically, gawa is brewed with spices that aid digestion and provide a steady, clean caffeine lift.
Which you need at midnight.
Exactly. While the dates provide an immediate influx of fructose and glucose, so instant energy for the brain to fight off fatigue. But sociologically, this stop raises a crucial point about how deeply hospitality is baked into the DNA of the region.
I would imagine in a landscape this hospitality isn't just about being polite.
It was historically a matter of life and death. In the ancient Najd desert, if a traveler emerged from the dark night and approached your camp, turning them away was tantamount to a death sentence.
Because there's nowhere else to go.
Right. To offer dates and coffee wasn't just offering a snack, it was a sacred duty, a mutual pact of survival. The desert is so harsh that human warmth and shelter became the ultimate currency.
So it's like a non-zero-sum game. You host the traveler today, because next month you might be the traveler lost in the dark needing a fire.
Precisely the logic.
Yeah.
When you stop at a modern, brightly lit roadside cafe on the highway today, and you are handed that small, handleless cup of steaming, fragrant coffee, you are participating in a modern echo of that ancient survival pact.
Wow.
The transaction is commercial now, but the rhythm and the warmth of the exchange are inherited from centuries of desert survival.
That reframes the entire pit stop. It connects you directly to the caravans who used to stop at the wells we talked about earlier, and it connects to the family dynamic at the destination too. Our sources highlighted a deeply touching detail about the culture of waiting up.
The psychology of the destination.
Right. When someone is on a night journey across the desert, even today in a modern car, the family at the destination doesn't just go to sleep.
No, they don't.
There is this deep-rooted cultural tradition of staying awake, keeping the lights on in the house, brewing fresh coffee, and waiting to welcome the traveler home safely no matter how late it is.
It is a beautiful reflection of the communal nature of the society. The journey isn't just an isolated event for the person behind the wheel. It actively involves the people waiting at the end of the road.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Consider the historical context again. You didn't have cell phones to drop a GPS pin or send a text saying, I'm 20 minutes away. Once a family member rode out into the desert, they were swallowed by the vastness.
You just had to wait, watch the horizon, and trust the stars.
The anxiety of that wait, culminating in the immense relief of finally seeing the traveler emerge safely out of the dark, it created a powerful culture of midnight welcomes.
And that emotional anchor still exists today.
Very much so. Knowing that a warm house and a waiting family are at the end of the dark highway changes the psychological texture of the drive. It turns a desolate trek into a homecoming.
So, fueled by that thought and a healthy dose of cardamom and sugar, we get back in the car.
Back on the road.
We merge back onto the dark highway. And as we push into the final quarter of the trip, the landscape outside the windows begins to shift dramatically. We pass the dark, imposing shapes of the mountains near Ghat, and we officially cross into the Qassim region.
And this is where the sensory experience of the drive completely flips on its head.
It really does.
The transition from the arid, rocky desert into the agricultural heartland. It is one of the most remarkable geographical shifts in the country, and experiencing it at night amplifies the contrast.
Imagine you've been driving for hours with your windows cracked. For 200 miles, all you've smelled is dry sand, the metallic tang of warm asphalt, and maybe a little exhaust. But suddenly, as you approach towns like Unaizah and Buraydah, you can literally smell the geography changing.
The air itself changes.
The temperature drops another few degrees, and this wave of humidity just hits your face. It smells like damp earth, rich soil, and dense vegetation. Why is that smell so intense at night?
You are experiencing a few intersecting biological and atmospheric phenomena here. First, the smell of damp earth is largely caused by a compound called geosmin, which is produced by bacteria in the soil.
Geosmin, okay.
When the temperature drops and humidity rises at night, those scent molecules are tracked closer to the ground, making them much more perceptible to human olfactory senses. But the massive influx of humidity and vegetation smell is due to the transpiration of literally millions of date palm trees.
Qassim is the breadbasket of Saudi Arabia, right?
It is. The scale of the agriculture here is difficult to overstate. There are millions upon millions of date palms, and experiencing these massive farms at night offers a profound contrast to their daytime reality.
Our sources describe driving past these massive farms, and in the dark, the palm trees just look like giant, towering silhouettes against the stars. It's like driving through a forest of sleeping giants. But they aren't totally dormant, are they?
Biologically, they are undergoing a crucial shift. During the searing heat of the day, a date palm is an engine working in overdrive just to survive the solar radiation. But at night, that engine changes gears. While date palms don't completely close their stomata during the day like some desert succulents, the cool night air reduces their water stress dramatically. They're respirating in the dark, exchanging gases with a cooler atmosphere.
So the trees are, in a very real sense, exhaling into the dark.
Exactly. That collective biological respiration across millions of trees is the humidity and the scent you're driving through.
And the contrast of the human activity is just as stark. During the day, especially during the hummus season, these farms are the definition of bustle and chaos. You have workers scaling the trees, the mechanical roar of tractors, trucks being loaded with tons of dates, the intense heat of the sun baking the soil.
It's nonstop.
It is loud, bright, and intensely industrial.
The economic engine is running at full capacity. And you see the exact same contrast at the famous Buraydah camel market.
Yes, the sources mention the camel market. During the day, it's supposedly the biggest in the world. Thousands of animals, auctioneers shouting, fierce negotiations, dust billowing everywhere. It is total sensory overload. But wait, if the desert belongs to the night, why is the world's biggest camel market bustling during the brutal daytime heat?
That is the clash between ancient natural rhythms and modern global commerce.
Oh, okay.
Historically, trade happened in the cooler hours. But today, the market is tied to modern logistical schedules, regional transport, and industrial timelines. It operates during the day to align with the rest of the modern economy.
But at night, we get a glimpse of the old rhythm. When you drive past these areas at midnight, the silence is heavy. The date farms are perfectly still silhouettes. The vast camel markets are empty and quiet, just massive plots of dark sand waiting for the dawn.
All of that immense economic and agricultural machinery just stops. There's a deep, restorative stillness to the agricultural zones at night. The plants are respirating, the soil is cooling, the animals are resting. You are witnessing the land literally catching its breath before the sun comes up and the furnace turns on again.
Out of that dark, quiet farmland, you start to see the soft glow of civilization again. We pass Unaizah, which has this incredible historical nickname, the Paris of Najd.
A moniker that speaks volumes about its historical significance and its cultural atmosphere.
Seeing it at night, you kind of understand the romance of the name. It's not that there's an Eiffel Tower out there. It's about this soft, historic glow. The old town streets illuminated by warm yellow streetlights, the shadows playing off the architecture.
Unaizah earned that name because it was historically a major center of culture, poetry, education, and trade. Because it was such a wealthy, well-watered agricultural oasis, it attracted intellectuals, writers, and cosmopolitan merchants.
It drew people in.
It had a flair and an openness that contrasted with the harshness of the surrounding deep desert. At night, when the modern traffic is gone and the noise dies down, that historic charm really comes forward. The layout of the old souks, the traditional doors, it all feels very intimate and historical under the streetlights.
You can just imagine the old poets and merchants sitting around a fire centuries ago in those same spots, sharing news from across the peninsula. But the smell of those palm groves and the glow of Unaizah mean only one thing for our drive.
We're almost there.
The long journey is finally coming to its conclusion. We are approaching Buraydah.
The culmination of the route. The destination the caravans were aiming for, and the destination we've been driving toward for the last 4 hours.
It's roughly 12 a.m. midnight. We start spotting the familiar signs. The excitement, and let's be honest, the deep physical relief of approaching home starts to set in. We pull into the city limits of Buraydah, and the aesthetic of the city at midnight is incredibly specific.
It's a very particular feeling.
The streets are mostly quiet. The shops have rolled down their corrugated metal shutters. There might be a single, brightly lit late-night shawarma stand or a cafe still open, with a few people gathered out front. You see the distant green neon glow of the mosque minarets piercing the dark sky.
It is the universal feeling of a city that has gone to sleep, waiting to safely receive the travelers who are still out on the road.
It really shifts the mindset of the drive. I was thinking about this as we prepared the deep dive. An outbound trip, say, leaving your hometown in the morning to go somewhere new, it's all about adrenaline.
Oh yeah, getting on the road early, coffee in hand.
Exactly. It's about discovery, podcasts on full volume, looking out the window at every new landmark. But a night return trip, the psychology is fundamentally different.
It is entirely introspective. The outbound journey is about consuming new information, but the return journey in the dark is about processing it.
Yes, it's about reflection, it's about memory. You're replaying the day in your head, you're watching the scenery you might have seen in the light, now wrapped in shadows and mystery. It's a homecoming.
The vibe settles down.
The energy in the car changes. You talk a little softer with your passengers, you appreciate the silences, your brain switches off that hypervigilance we talked about at the beginning, and you just let the hum of the tires carry you the last few miles.
If we synthesize this entire 4-hour arc, we see that traversing this landscape in the dark is, well, it's an act of historical tracing. The traveler today, in their modern air-conditioned car, isn't just crossing physical distance. They were inadvertently mirroring the rhythms of the past.
Because they are navigating the exact same void.
Exactly. They are tracing the invisible waypoints of the Bedouin caravans, who navigated by the intricate rotation of the stars. They are passing the silent functional genius of mud brick walls, radiating heat into the cold night.
Right.
They're participating in the deep-rooted, life-saving culture of Najd hospitality over a late-night cup of cardamom coffee. And they are watching the massive resting ecosystems of the date farms breathe in the dark.
And then, the quiet, midnight streets of Buraydah serve as the perfect, peaceful culmination of that journey. It is a journey through time, masked by the darkness, revealed only to those who understand what they are looking at in the shadows.
A landscape truly defined by its duality. To know the desert only in the daylight is to really only know half its story.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap what we've actually just unpacked. We've seen how a single 4-hour route from Riyadh to Buraydah completely transforms after the sun goes down.
It's a completely different world.
We traded the blinding lights of a modern megacity for the subtle, star-navigated caravan routes of the open desert. We explored the thermodynamic genius of ancient mud brick watchtowers bathed in moonlight, standing guard over sleeping markets. We unpacked the biochemistry and sociology of the ancient, survival-rooted ritual of coffee and dates.
Go in the dark.
And we drove through the damp, fragrant air of millions of resting palm trees before finally pulling into the quiet midnight streets of a sleeping city. Alhamdulillah, we made it.
It is a profound transition, one that happens every single night, quietly, just beyond the glow of the headlights.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you. If you are listening to this on a commute right now, think about a route that you travel all the time. It could be your daily drive to work, a familiar stretch of highway, or the road back to your hometown.
Somewhere you know by heart.
Right. Now, imagine if you were to travel that exact same path in the dead of night, stripped of all the daytime hustle, illuminated only by the moon and your headlights. What hidden histories, what unseen architecture, or what quiet natural rhythms might you suddenly discover that the daytime sun has been hiding from you all along? Think about the door to that soundproof room and what's waiting on the other side when the lights go out. Thank you for riding in the passenger seat with us for this deep dive. Stay curious, keep exploring the layers of the world around you, and we'll see you next time. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum.